Tell me if this sounds familiar. You go to YouTube, you type in the best settings for enter your specific camera model, and then you find all of these different results. Maybe you're going through even some of my videos walking you through the best settings for this specific camera and the menu settings and what to change to get better looking videos. The only problem is no matter how many people's settings that you copy, no matter how many pieces of gear that you buy, when you get ready to sit down and create your video, it does not look the way that you hoped. There's actually 3 tips that I want to give you that will give you better looking videos. And if you stick around until later in the video, I'm actually going to give you a pro tip on something that I always do for every one of my videos to make sure it looks the same every time. The first thing that you want to change if you're wanting to get your videos from looking dingy to sharp and the way they should be looking is making sure that you're not over pumping the brightness on your camera's screen. So if you have a camera that has a flippy screen, or maybe you're using some kind of external monitor, you need to make sure that what you're seeing on that screen is as close to accurate. So when you take the SD card from the camera to the computer, you are not seeing drastically different looking things. Here's the problem with this. When you're thinking through the shutter, ISO, and the aperture, those various different points of the exposure triangle, that needs to help you to actually get the right exposure. Most people are looking visually off of what they see on the screen and not based on the numerical values, or they're not going off of the histograms or any of this other scientific stuff that actually lets you know, looking at the graphs, looking at the numbers, are you overexposed, underexposed, or just right in what you're hoping to get. So when you over brighten the screen, you start to give yourself a false expectation that your image is brighter than what it is, and it's not. This is only a problem, honestly, because you're not confident enough of looking at the camera screen and knowing if you overdid it or not when it comes to your exposure settings. So when you set it to a sunny weather setting, or you increase the brightness on the screen, sometimes that can make you think that your video is overexposed or too bright, or if it's underexposed and it's too dark. So make sure you're getting an accurate representation of what you should see. Now, if you're outdoors, then yeah, increasing the brightness on the screen can help, changing it to sunny weather so you actually know what you're looking at. But if you're indoors, go ahead and turn that off and start getting used to looking at yourself, your screen, and your environment without added extraness on the camera that's going to throw your exposure off. And your settings may not be wrong, but they're just off. The next thing that I'll change on my camera, just to make sure that it's not looking dingy and it's starting to look the way that I want it to, is slightly overexposing the video. Now, when I say expose or exposure, or it's like, instead of just saying too bright or too dark, overexpose is it's being too bright, underexposed, it's being too dark. So when you want proper exposure, that's just making sure that it looks normal. The brightest parts of the screen and the darkest parts of the screen, so like my black shirt, a white light, or something like that, they look normal. You don't want anything to look an infinity black or an infinity white, like an Apple commercial or something, when they just have the all white infinity background. It looks kind of weird. So what I'll do on my camera is I will increase the brightness just slightly. And the thing that I want to do is make sure that I have enough wiggle room in my exposure settings, because most of the time what the problem is when I'm reviewing clients' videos and they're like, why doesn't it look the same? I'm pretty close to all the settings, we're similar in skin tone, or the environment and the lighting is right for my skin tone, person that's I'm talking to. But the thing is, it's like it doesn't look right. The issue is you may be slightly underexposed or very underexposed, meaning it's way too dark. So I'm going to show you what my settings are right now and how I measure this to make sure that everything looks the way it should look, solely looking off of the screen. We're not getting into any nerdy, nitty-gritty stuff, but just so visually, when you're looking at the monitor on your camera, you can start knowing if it's right or if it's starting to get too awkward. All right, so right now you can see the actual settings on my camera, and you can see right there where it says plus 0.3. The reason why I want to show that to you is because when I'm sitting down to record a video, I want to slightly overexpose my video. Or you may see, if you're watching more channels that are getting more into photography or cinematography, you'll see them say exposed to the right. And if you think of it as a number line, like we would do in school, in elementary school, the more you get to the right, the more you are to the positives. The more you get to the left, the more you are to the negatives, and directly in the middle, there is the 0 value. It's the same thing with exposure triangles and exposure in general. When you're starting to overexpose the image, or it's starting to get too bright in some areas, the camera will tell you that you're getting overexposed slightly. Now, you have the right to make a stylistic choice of how you want your videos to look, but you don't want it to be too dark, especially if you're using standard settings. That's usually very contrast in the camera. So the reason why you'll see creators like myself or other creators tend to use like a log profile or customized settings, and then they start to get into color grading and stuff. It's so we have more wiggle room to manipulate the values on the camera and just the way that it looks. And I'm going to switch from what we're currently using, which is our customized setting, and we're going to switch to the standard picture profile, just so you can see the difference. So without making any changes to the settings, everything is still the same. We're still at plus 0.3, a slightly overexposed image, but this is what it looks like now switching to the standard picture profile. Even though I'm a little bit more exposed, things are more contrasty. My hair is blacker, my skin has a oranger, redder hue to it. My shirt is very black now. And it's fine if you prefer the way that this looks. It's just that when you pick the standard picture profile in any camera, it tends to be a bit more contrasty and just a bit more harsh with your colors. So you want to slightly overexpose that just a little bit, just so you have a little wiggle room. So something like a plus 0.3, or sometimes in some spaces I like to use a plus 0.7 and just slightly overexposed. Even sometimes it can be +1 overexposing your camera, but I don't want to overdo it at all. I really want to keep it the same. So now that you've seen what standard picture profile looks like, this is what it would look like if you are underexposing your videos. Right now we're what's called a stop underexpose, or on your number line or your exposure meter, it would be like a -1. In editing, we'll do what we can with the same lighting. It's just the incorrect settings in the camera to make things too dark. So we'll try to adjust that exposure in camera just to see how good we can look with the way that it is right now. And so now here we are at an f1.4 and we're down from an f2.5. And so the lower this number becomes, the brighter your image becomes. And it's not that an f2.5 is bad. It's just that without adjusting the other parts of the exposure triangle that we've talked about in a previous video, which I'll link in the information card up above, without adjusting things properly, then you start to run into issues with your videos not looking quite right. Whereas if we did want to slightly boost the exposure to make this clip a bit brighter or something, then we have less of a scale to jump through and less hoops. So you want to get things to look as right in camera as possible. So the third and final tip is that you want to start getting comfortable with what the proper exposure settings look like on your actual camera screen. There's smartphones and things that'll come out, or different apps that'll allow you to use your smartphone as a monitor, or even investing in an actual external monitor for your camera. Now, I'm not averse to any of those options. I actually think it's really cool to invest in a monitor so you can have a wider view of what you're actually seeing on your camera screen, because sometimes it can help to point out little things that you may not see on the viewfinder of your camera. But you want to get familiar with when you're looking at yourself or your environment or a situation that you're trying to record, especially when you're in the same environment all the time. Like, know if you leave the video as is, are you going to have to do a bunch of stuff in editing? Is that more of a headache on the back end? You never just want to rely on the statement, you can fix it in post, because just because you can try doesn't mean it will look as good as it could have looked if you had just got it right in camera. Now, early in the video, I said I'd share with you my secret that helps me record content like 10 times faster. And the thing with that is doing a camera save mode, in the sense that I'm going to save all of my settings. And on the Sony cameras, this is called memory recall. On other camera brands, you'll usually see this with the letter C. On brands like Canon or maybe like Nikon or Panasonic, where you can create a custom dial where it saves those settings that you want. For some cameras, it may just save most of your video settings and some of the exposure settings, or in other ones, it may save the entire menu. And if you have certain brands or certain models of cameras, you can literally save that profile on an SD card or somewhere on your computer, and even share that across cameras if you want, to make it easier. So take a look into your camera to see if you can do this. Most modern mirrorless cameras can do that to some extent. Now, if you have one of the Sony APS-C mirrorless camera bodies, I'm actually going to walk you through in the next video how you can actually use the memory recall on your camera. So once you find the right settings for your environment, you can save them so you don't always have to constantly relook and find them all over again and try to figure stuff out. You can save it and have it and you're good to go. Make sure you click on the video on the screen to check it out.